I've often spoken on this channel about how precious the freedom to ride my motorcycles in these lands is to me. It is something valuable beyond everyday expression. Its true meaning is almost impossible to pin down because it sits outside of the day-to-day human experiences which we normally use to frame our thoughts on the subject. And so it is with some trepidation that I attempt to get my mind around the concept, in the hope of understanding as fully as possible why freedom sits at the heart of who I am, who we all are for that matter. Of course, embracing freedom is not confined to us motorcyclists. It sits in the hearts of all good people and is only absent from those of the bad. And for bad, read those who would like to see our freedoms constrained or removed altogether. That notions of restricting our freedoms are the almost exclusive contemplation of those in positions of power and influence should give us grounds for concern. Whenever I hear or read of proposals from our lords, ladies and puppeteers to either directly control what we do and where we go, or to enact legislation which would have the same effect, a cold shiver runs down my spine. But we can see at almost every turn in this 21st century an increasing and insidious overreach into our lives by increasingly dark forces at play in the governance of the Western democracies, and no more so than in this united, or is it disunited, kingdom. I passionately despise the very notion of caging wild animals for human entertainment. Between animals held captive in an established zoo or a caged bird in somebody's lounge, I see no difference. It is perhaps the ultimate sin to deny liberty to another soul, the better that we humans can be humoured in some way. Now, this is a completely distinct notion from that of domesticated pet welfare. Dogs like my German Shepherd Eddie have become adapted and domesticated to the affairs of man over many centuries, if not millennia, and in most cases live with and like humans in a way which for the most part causes little, if any, anxiety, and is far removed from the ancient howl of the timber wolf. But for me, when it comes to drawing a parallel between the animal kingdom and ourselves in terms of freedom and liberty, the closest analogy is the caged bird or penned-in wild mammal. You see, to feel and be truly free, we must have agency. We must have the ability, unconstrained by time and circumstance, to exercise free will, within the general principle of doing no harm. But we don't really have that, do we? In many ways we are shackled by the ever lengthening and tightening chains of legislation and regulation which will one day blight our lives and render us into a population of obedient serfs existing only to serve and preserve the ambitions of an elite few. You can see the material manifestations of this all around. CCTV networks across towns and cities, facial recognition cameras, speed cameras, ULEZ and CAS cameras, bus lane cameras, traffic light cameras, signs of prohibition, restriction and obligation, so many that the highway code now resembles an academic reference book. Authorities jumping on citizens for daring to express an opinion on social media, only to find after a lengthy and costly investigation that no offences have been committed. The increasing willingness to do this to people is emboldening some organisations to go down the prosecutorial road whenever they feel irritated by the legitimate protestations of those whom they are supposed to serve when the standards drop. You can literally feel the net closing in on our freedoms. We are not trusted by the establishment and are therefore to be controlled. It's my view, not least as a result of a 3-decade career in policing, that the only offence which needs to be on the books is that of the unnecessary doing of harm to others, whether through intent or through recklessness. Within such a catch-all, it would be easy to construct a sliding scale of seriousness to match each case. We don't need a library full of statute books. The common law, evolved over centuries, gives us all that we need. Anything else is just a vehicle for the continued erosion of our liberty and rights as citizens of the land in which we were born. So with all that said, what is freedom? And what is the historical context? Freedom is one of the most cherished and fundamental values of human existence. It is the cornerstone of individual growth, societal progress, and the pursuit of happiness. At its core, freedom represents the ability to think, speak, and act without undue restraint or oppression. It is a concept that transcends borders, cultures, and time, yet its meaning and application have evolved throughout history. Freedom is not merely the absence of constraints, but the presence of opportunities to live authentically and fulfill one's potential. Philosophers have long grappled with the concept. Ancient Greek thinkers like Socrates and Aristotle emphasized the importance of self-mastery and rational thought as pathways to true freedom. In the Enlightenment era, thinkers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that freedom is an inherent right, essential for human dignity and the social contract. Locke's idea of natural rights, life, liberty and property, laid the groundwork for modern democratic societies where freedom is protected by law and governance. Freedom is often divided into two dimensions, negative and positive. Negative freedom refers to the absence of external constraints, such as laws or oppressive systems, that hinder individual actions. Positive freedom, on the other hand, is the capacity to act in accordance with one's true will and potential. Both dimensions are crucial for a balanced understanding of freedom, as they address both external and internal barriers to human flourishing. Throughout history, the pursuit of freedom has driven countless movements and revolutions. The American Revolutions, 1775 to 1783, and the French, from 1789 to 1799, were pivotal moments in the fight for political freedom and equality. These events underscored the idea that freedom is not granted but must be fought for and defended. Similarly, the abolition of slavery, the civil rights movement and the fight for gender equality are testaments to humanity's enduring quest for freedom from oppression and discrimination. In the 20th century, figures like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela exemplified the power of non-violent resistance in the struggle for freedom. Their efforts demonstrated that freedom is not just a personal ideal, but a collective endeavour requiring solidarity, courage and perseverance. These historical struggles remind us that freedom is fragile and must be actively safeguarded against tyranny and injustice. While freedom is a universal aspiration, it's not without its challenges and contradictions. The paradox of freedom lies in the tension between individual liberty and collective responsibility. Absolute freedom for one person can infringe upon the rights and freedoms of others. For example, freedom of speech is a fundamental right, but it must be balanced against the need to prevent hate speech and misinformation. Similarly, economic freedom can lead to innovation and prosperity, but unchecked capitalism can exacerbate inequality and exploitation. And my word, are we seeing that now? This paradox, if that's what it is, highlights the need for ethical and legal frameworks to regulate freedom. Laws, constitution, and social norms serve as guardrails, ensuring that freedom is exercised responsibly and equitably. The challenge for societies is to strike a balance between preserving individual liberties and promoting the common good. But winding on, in the 21st century, the concept of freedom has taken on new dimensions in the face of globalization, technology, and environmental challenges. The digital age has expanded opportunities for expression and connection, but it has also raised concerns about privacy, surveillance, and misinformation. Social media platforms have empowered individuals to share their voices, but have also been used to spread propaganda and manipulate public opinion. Moreover, the green agenda and resource scarcity have introduced new constraints on freedom. The choices we make today about energy consumption, conservation and sustainability will determine the freedoms enjoyed by future generations. In this context, freedom must be reimagined as a collective responsibility, where individual actions contribute to the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. On a personal level, freedom is deeply tied to self-awareness and authenticity. True freedom requires introspection and courage to break free from internalized limitations such as fear, self-doubt, and societal expectations. As the philosopher Erich Fromm observed, many people fear freedom because it entails responsibility and with it uncertainty. Yet it's only by embracing this responsibility that individuals can achieve genuine autonomy, fulfillment, and agency. Freedom also involves the ability to make choices and learn from consequences. And it's through this process of trial and error that individuals grow and develop a sense of agency itself. And to that end, freedom is not a static condition, but a dynamic journey of self-discovery and empowerment. And yet, whereas all of this sits at the core of what it means to be human, we must be endlessly on our guard to ensure that those of our species who sit on high above us do not, through stealth, gradual attrition, and eventually normalisation, subjugate us into 21st century serfdom, where we exist only at their whim and occasional tolerance. As motorcyclists, we understand that, through riding when, but not where, we want. Our liberties are partial and conditional. I say we should be able to ride wherever we want, whenever we want, whilst always observing one rule: do no harm. I'll see thee.